Hello there, we are continuing our series learning chess fundamentals from Paul Morphy. We are still on rule number 2, develop with threats, and this is the third game in which we will try to demonstrate this rule. This game was played in Paris in 1858, so while Paul Morphy was on his European tour. White was Paul Morphy and black was Jean-Louis Preti. Preti was a French master, French chess player. He was also a music composer, and he was considered a strong player in France. So this was again a blindfold simultaneous exhibition, and Morphy played against several masters. So let's get to the game. Now Morphy played e4, so his usual opening. And this time his opponent answered by c5. So this is the Sicilian defense, of course, and this is, according to many masters, most combative answer by black. So black is here showing that he wants to fight, so he doesn't want to just hold the position by playing e5 and just blocking the e4 pawn, but he wants to fight for center. So he, by this move, he seizes the d4 square for himself from the wing. Morphy plays immediately d4, and this is kind of unusual because today you will more often see for white first knight f3 and then after knight f3 d4. So this move order is not very common today, but it's playable, and in most variants it's the same in the end. So Morphy plays immediately d4, black captures, c takes d4, and white plays knight f3 now, and black plays e5 immediately. So black wants to get hold on the center. He wants to control center squares, to put his pawns in the center, and this is all good chess. Of course, in this position, this pawn is unprotected, but there is a tactics behind this, so black can only hope that white would grab this pawn by knight takes e5, and then queen a5 check just wins the piece, because now it's check with threat on the knight. Okay, so of course Morphy didn't fall for this cheap trick, but instead he played bishop c4, developing the bishop, and also restraining black for playing d5 now. So by this move Morphy is controlling this d5 square. And black developed with a forcing move and played bishop b4 check. So this is one example of this ineffective threat and the ineffective forcing move. If you remember, in our previous videos I was talking about situation when you make a threat only to make a threat, or make a check only to give a check, and in the end you don't accomplish much with this. Why is this ineffective here? Because obviously if you look from the white perspective, so white doesn't want to have this pawn here forever. So white is planning to play c3 anyway. And now with this check, white will just play c3 as he would have played even if black didn't make this forcing move. So this is not this is very ineffective way to force things. Instead of this move, black could have, for example, played d5 anyway, and after bishop takes d5 he could develop his knight on f6 with a threat. Now black is attacking the piece, and after for example white castles, black could just grab this piece, white takes back with his pawn, queen takes d5, and now knight takes e5 because this knight cannot be captured by queen, because the queen then will be lost due to the pin. So black could play, for example, bishop d6. And now in this position you can see that material is equal, and black has a very good game. So black has a pawn in the center, his queen is active, it's in the center of the board, his bishop is also active, his light square bishop can be easily developed, and knight has also some good possibilities to develop. So this will be an alternative line, but instead of this, black decided just to give a check. So Morphy replied by playing c3, d takes c3, and now Morphy takes with his b pawn. So white not with his knight, because if by taking with his b pawn, he's making a threat. So this lecture, this game is all about threats. So now he's making a threat, and so this move comes with a tempo. And this bishop now has to retreat, and white has extra tempo to continue with his development. And if, for example, white would capture here with knight takes c3, then nothing is accomplished. So this knight is pinned, this threat is still going on, and this bishop can stay on this b4 square, and it has its role here. So after b takes c3, game continues, bishop retreats to c5, and this is in fact a much better alternative than, for example, bishop could have retreated to a5, but now queen d5, and you can see lots of threats here. So queen is first of all threatening f7, it's attacking this bishop, so this black queen is tied to defend this bishop, because this b pawn cannot be moved, because this queen will then just grab the rook. So black probably saw this and decided to retreat his bishop to c5 instead. The game continues. Now Morphy takes this free pawn, so knight takes e5, and black plays queen to f6, now with some very serious threats. So what is queen threatening here? Well, obviously it threatens to take this knight, but more seriously it threats this queen captures f2 with checkmate. So white has to do something. In principle, there are three things you can do to meet a threat. You can address the threat directly, you can ignore the threat if you have some better move and you don't care about the threat, or you can make a forcing move so your opponent cannot go with the threat. So in this case you cannot ignore the threat, obviously, because the threat is checkmate, so this cannot be ignored. And so you could address this threat directly, for example, by playing knight to d3, and now this knight is no longer attacked because it moved away, and also from this d3 square the knight defends f2. Another way is to make a forcing move, and this is what Morphy did in this position. So Morphy played bishop takes f7 check, and now king has to move away, and king moves to f8, which is not a good choice, because you see this rook now in the corner. It's trapped here. It cannot be easily developed. So much better continuation for black would be that instead of playing king to f8 here, he could have played king to e7, and then after now white has to deal with this threat. It cannot be ignored anymore, so white would have to play knight to d3, and then after bishop takes f2, knight takes f2, and now queen takes f7, because this bishop is now unprotected because this knight who was protecting the bishop just decided to move away. Okay, and now in this position it will be much easier for black to develop. He could just develop his knight, put his rook on e8, and then attack his king back on f8. But anyway, black played king to f8. And now again, Morphy cannot ignore this serious threats, so he has to address this somehow, and he plays knight d3, now protecting the f2 square, and also threatening to capture this unprotected bishop on c5. So Jean-Louis Preti moves this bishop. He doesn't want to give away his strong bishop, and this bishop indeed is very strong. It has this very nice open diagonal and constant threat on f2. So Morphy now retreats his bishop because if you notice, this bishop on f7 is now unprotected, so Morphy retreats his bishop, and black plays knight to c6. And Morphy now develops his undeveloped bishop, so his c1 bishop with a threat on a3. So bishop a3 check. Sorry, this is not a threat, this is a forcing move, of course, and black blocks this check with d6. Just for a reference, in some sources they give a different move order. So according to some sources, instead after queen b3, instead of knight c6 immediately, black played first d6, then the bishop was developed on a3, and then black played this move knight to c6. But the position is the same. The only difference is that instead of checking here, white has this threat of playing e5, since this black pawn is pinned. So white can play e5 here. But anyway, we come to this position, and then now white castled. And this castle, this move, castles, comes with a threat. And this is very important to remember, maybe to take home from this game, is that even the most innocent move, so the castling, can bring huge threats. So what is the threat here? The threat is e5. And if you want to see why castling is threatening e5, then let's play this variation. Let's say that black does nothing, just like some silly move like a6, and now e5. And if you can say, okay, it's not a problem because this pawn is attacked 3 times and it's defended only once, so it shouldn't be a problem. But there is a tactical trick here. So if, for example, knight takes c5, knight takes c5, queen takes e5, and then this blowing move, bishop takes d6 with check, and of course with double attack on king and the queen. And now imagine that white didn't castle, so if king was still on e1, then this would be check. So this idea would not be possible. So this is why I said that in this position, now castles is threatening e5. And Jean-Louis Preti didn't see this threat, and he played knight to h6, so he wanted to develop his knight. And of course Morphy immediately played e5, but now Preti thought about the position, and he didn't proceed with this variation, so he saw what would happen if he would have taken this with his knight. So he, instead of taking this pawn, he just played queen to g6. And now all white pieces are in very good position for the attack. So this queen can be activated here, this queen can be activated here, and this knight can come closer. So now Morphy is starting to make some serious threats and starting to do the attack. So knight f4, threatening the queen. Queen has to move, and now knight a6 with check. And this temporarily sacrifices this piece, because you can see that knight on e6 is attacked twice and defended only once. But Morphy figured this out, and he will get his piece back very soon. So the idea behind this move is to force the king in the open, as we will see in the next few moves. I'll just mention the alternative. So the alternative to this move was to play queen takes d6 check immediately, and then after king e8 bring the bishop to e6, and now with a very strong attack. So this was alternative move, but this is just as good, as you will see. So now bishop takes e6, queen takes d6 with check, king moves to f7, and now queen d7 check. As you can see, this piece is now pinned, so this queen cannot be captured. Now queen goes to g6, and now Morphy recaptures the piece with bishop takes e6. But also this recapture comes with a threat, so he threatens the queen now. So queen has to move, queen g5, and bishop d5. This move is very strong because it does several good things. So first of all, it's unleashing the queen, so queen can now join the attack on the king. And if you look at this bishop has several opportunities here. It can capture the knight if need be, so removing the defender, or this bishop can also deliver the check on e4. So by this one move, he made these two pieces, queen and the bishop, very, very active and very dangerous in the vicinity of the enemy king. The game continues. Knight takes e5. Now Black is trying to get his pieces to the defense of his king. So bishop e4 check. Now Morphy seizes the opportunity to pressure even more, and Black answers with knight f5. So now Black is self-pinning this knight on f5. And if you look at the alternatives, he could hardly do any better here. So he could have, for example, played bishop f6, but then he would just get checkmated, queen e7 checkmate. Or in this position, he could play king h5, and well, this will be the same outcome as in the game. Okay, so after this knight f5 move, Morphy continues by playing queen to e6 check, and now queen gets self-pinned here. So you can see it's very interesting. So everything is pinned. So these two pieces cannot move. And now white continues with the attack by bishop takes on f5 with check. And this is a very common pattern, in fact. So when you have this queen, which is in the middle of own king and the enemy queen and this bishop. So this pattern is in fact very, very common. You'll find this in tactical puzzles, and I met this several times in my blitz and bullet games. So everything is pinned here. Nothing can be moved. So king has to move away. So king h5. Again, there are not much better moves here. King could play on h6, for example. And this variation is interesting because now black has this backward attacking move, bishop c1 check. And these kind of moves are often very hard to spot, even for masters and grandmasters, because always when you want to attack, then you always think about your pieces moving forward. So attack is when you move forward, and to find a backward move which attacks, and during the attack to look at backward moves is often very difficult. So this move would be very, very interesting. So he checks. And then after king h5, white could play g4 check, and after queen h4, queen d5, now threatening queen g2 with checkmate in the next move. And black can avoid this checkmate only by giving away a ton of material. Okay, but black didn't go to h6, he went to h5 here, and now immediately g4 check. What can black do now? Okay, he can move his king, but then he'll just lose his queen by bishop e7, because now this queen is pinned. So black didn't want to lose his queen, but instead he played another legal move, and this is knight takes g4 now, sacrificing the knight. Bishop takes g4 check. And according to some sources, black resigned here, but according to some other sources, black played one more move, king to g5, and now bishop e7 winning the queen, and now black resigned the game. Okay, so we saw another game with lots of threats from both sides. Some threats were serious and real, and some threats were not so important. So I think we can. This game is very good to learn these principles. So according to my own advice, I will go through this game once more. So the idea is that you should go through every game at least twice. So once you see in details what the game is all about, then you can go through game again, and then hoping to be able to memorize and remember what you have learned. Okay, so let's go through this game a little bit quicker now. So Morphy plays e4, and black goes with the Sicilian defense. Morphy strikes in the center immediately, c takes d4, Morphy develops his knight on f3, and black plays e5 immediately seizing the center, and now capturing of this pawn doesn't work because this would just win the piece by giving check and attacking the piece at the same time. So Morphy plays bishop to c4, now controlling this d5 square, and black plays bishop b4, forcing move, but which is not a good move because white planned to play the c3 anyway, so nothing is accomplished by this move. So white plays c3, d takes c3, and now b takes c3. So Morphy captures with his b pawn in order to make a threat and to gain a tempo. This is why he didn't capture with his knight, which would just end up with his knight being pinned. Okay, so b takes c3, bishop retreats to c5, and now knight takes e5, grabbing back the pawn. Queen to f6, now making some serious threats, like threatening to capture the knight on e5, but also threatening this checkmate on f2. Morphy answers with this threat with another forcing move, so bishop takes f7 check, king moves to f8. It would be better for this king to move to e7, because in that case his rook would be more easily developed. So king goes to f8, knight d3, addressing this threat. So knight is now defending f2, but at the same time attacking the bishop on c5. Bishop retreats to b6, maintaining the threat, and now white bishop retreats to b3 because here it was unprotected. Black plays knight c6, developing his knight. Morphy develops with forcing move again, so bishop a3 check, blocking the check with d6, and now castles, and the castle is threatening to play e5. And Jean-Louis Preti didn't see this threat, and he played just knight to h6, and now e5 is a thing, and this pawn cannot be captured because at the end of the variation this check would win the queen if everything was exchanged on this a5 square. Okay, so queen goes to g6, and now Morphy has all his pieces running, and he wants to start the attack. Okay, so everything is active. So knight f4 with threat, queen has to go to g4, and now knight e6 check, temporarily sacrificing this piece. Bishop takes e6, now queen takes d6 with check, knight to f7, and now Morphy is not in a hurry to recapture this piece, but he plays bishop d7 check, and now this piece is pinned, so this queen cannot be taken away. King g6, and now bishop takes e6 with threat on the queen. Queen g5, black has to move away the queen, and now bishop d5, making this queen more active, and also putting this bishop on the square from which it can capture or check. So knight takes e5, black is bringing his forces to the defense. but bishop e4 check now, knight f5, self-impeding the knight because there are no better alternatives available. Now queen e6 check, so now black is self-pinning the queen, so now this queen and this knight are both pinned, nothing can move here, so bishop takes f5 check. Now this queen is pinned, so black cannot capture this bishop, but he has to move the king to h5. He could have moved it to h6, but then this backward attacking move was the idea, and white would just win this position. So king h5, and now the pawn joins the attack, g4 check. There is nothing much black can do here. He will lose the queen if he moves his king to h4. Then bishop e7 is coming and winning the queen. So Preti captures this pawn, and then bishop captures the pawn with check. And so some sources said black resigned here, and according to some other sources, Jean-Louis Preti made one more move, king to g5, and then after bishop e7, pinning and winning this queen, Jean-Louis Preti resigned on move 25. Like always, I hope you'll find this video useful. If you like this video, then please click the like button, subscribe to my channel, and make sure to check out the description box below. You'll find some useful links and references there, and please be free to comment to tell us about your improvement, what do you think about these videos, or anything you have in mind related to chess. Cheers!